Good evening. I just want to make sure that everyone who is online so far can see us. I think that's the case. Welcome. Sorry for those little technical difficulties. When you upgrade on Zoom, there's a whole lot of new things to learn. And one of them was how to practice prior to hosting everyone. And I see that lots of folks are joining. Very excited to see you a part of this exciting hour workshop in the resolution of pain in our lives, and a very innovative, non-invasive, non-narcotic approach to living a pain-free life. So when pain comes, physical pain comes, stress comes, we're able to divert it, to convert it, to make it leave our brain. Because as we will soon learn from the experts, pain is a function of the brain. My name is Tanya Abreu, and I am very, very proud to be the facilitator and host of this webinar. Welcome to everyone that's watching this tonight. I have had about 35 years experience as a consumer health advocate. Now, I've done hospital administration, I've done healthcare consulting for physicians and hospitals and companies and governments. But truly, my calling, my excitement is to be an advocate, to learn in order to share with consumers and to learn from consumers, things that I didn't think were possible, and certainly to learn from physicians, healthcare providers, researchers, new ways of health, new ways of being, new ways of youthful, pain-free living. You know, in all the years that I've been doing public speaking, and all the years that I've worked with doctors and hospitals, trying to really find out, how do you get to a patient? How do you get them to take action on the things that they know they need to do? I have discovered two common denominators that people really struggle with. Yes, everyone's afraid of cancer. Yes, everyone's afraid of dementia. But there's two things that almost everybody in their life experiences. One is the lack of sleep, exhaustion, anxiety, being overwhelmed, just not being able to sleep. And that causes an entire kind of cornucopia of health problems on every level. So insomnia and sleeplessness have been kind of a melody in all my years working with people. But just right there is pain. Why am I in pain? Why, when I didn't get injured, does my back hurt chronically? Is this arthritis? Do I have to live in pain? Why can't I move my neck like I used to? Why can't I climb stairs? Why can I no longer lift my dog? I know from not just online webinars, but from in-person presentations, the questions come up, and they're inevitably about chronic pain. About 4 years ago, I met two doctors, one a neuroscientist who is on tonight, and one a Chinese and Eastern medicine physician, as well as, he will be introduced, as well as someone who has decades of credible training at every major medical institution, academic medical institution. And I met these two people in a journey to help them understand how to present what they had been doing, somatic functional therapy, to the world. Their partner is in Massachusetts. His name is Dr. Joe Slawowski. He's joining us tonight as well. And it's an exciting 4 years later where I think we're finally ready to release this to the world, not just to consumers who are suffering in chronic pain each and every day of their lives, but to healthcare providers who are looking for non-opioid solutions to chronic pain, to anxiety, to everything that is plaguing the American people and beyond. It's somatic functional therapy has to be experienced. When I was prepping for this webinar with Dr. Slawowski, he was like, I don't want to say anything. I just want to do things, because it is so important to reconnect brain and body. So people just go, shoot, that was so easy to get rid of that pain. Why didn't someone tell me this earlier? But before I turn this over to the experts, before I turn this over to the practitioners, I want to read something that Dr. Nunez shared with me probably about a year back. And it is a quote on a very big board that he has in his office that I took without him knowing for this purpose by one of the originators of somatics, right? And it's, soma means the brain. So if the brain is at the center of physical disease and pain manifestation, somatics is the study of how the brain does that stuff and how to fix it. See, I'm the consumer, so I'm breaking it down in non-medical terms. But this is a beautiful quote that I'd like to end my opening and introduction with. It's a little bit long, so bear with me. What the neurophysiological research of the past several decades tells us is that the kind of thoughts we think determines the quality and effectiveness of our lives. Because thinking is an action of the entire body that mobilizes the entire sensor motor system, the nature of our thinking activity automatically determines the nature of our bodily activity. If we turn the same anxious thoughts over in our minds day after day, then it is certain that we are tensing and activating certain contractions in our bodies day after day. Ouch, that's not here. And it is just as certain that these afflicted parts of our body will, through this daily abuse, become fatigued and damaged. When we think the same thoughts of revenge over and over again, we are activating the muscles and glands of our bodies over and over again. When we repeat the same thought of disappointment over and over again, we are repeatedly stamping its motor power into the tissues of our body until they sag in forlornness. Sounds like aging to me. When we repeatedly think thoughts or memories of hurt, despair, anger, or fear, we are physically injuring ourselves. We are engaging in self-destruction. That's Thomas Hanna. Get a copy of it because it will change your life if you really meditate on it. So I want to get started. I'd like to introduce the other female of our program tonight, Dr. Alba Rodriguez. Can you come up to your podium there, Dr. Alba? She is the neuroscientist researcher that I earlier talked about. And she will give a little intro to herself, but I wanted her to position somatic functional therapy for us as non-scientists. How is it credible? How is it verified? And how does it compare to, let's say, hey, I've done acupuncture, and I have to admit, in all transparency, Dr. Ramon, Dr. Alba treated me for a herniated disc that my surgeon refused to let me have physical therapy, refused to let me do massage because he was afraid that it was going to cut into my spinal nerves and somehow damage my spine. And I couldn't stand. I couldn't stand straight. I couldn't get out of bed. And I will say 4 years later, my neck problems, my back, my knees, yes, every once in a while they come back like little pinchers, but I got this with healthy diet and with SFT micro movements that are so simple. I don't have to go to physical therapy. I don't have to go get a massage, and they work. So I wanted to give my personal testimony and then introduce Alba.
Thank you so much, Tanya. We are so happy to be here with you all today. Thank you, Tanya, for kind of hosting and facilitating this. Tanya is a wonderful health advocate with a lot of experience in the healthcare industry, and we're so appreciative of her being here. So I just want to give you a little bit of background from where I'm coming from, so you kind of see where this started for me. I had just finished my doctoral degree at the University of South Florida in psychology and neuroscience, and I had gone up to a major health system in Michigan to do a postdoctoral fellowship because I was very interested in integrative medicine. And I had done a lot of work in neuroscience, treatments for different neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, all kinds of stroke, these types of things. But I wanted, the work I had done was in animal models. And I wanted to be able to work with people and help people now, not just something that maybe 10 or 20 years down the road was going to help people. So I moved to Michigan, and I did a postdoctorate fellowship there. And then I became the associate director of the Center for Integrative Medicine, and eventually the Center for Integrative Wellness. And while there, I was in charge of a lot of the research going on there. And at the Center for Integrative Medicine, we were working with a lot of patients. And what we found there is that what most of the patients were coming to see us with, and I'm just going to breeze right through this because we all know stress-related illness and chronic pain are a big issue here. But what we found in the research at the Integrative Medicine Center is we started tracking outcomes to see how people were doing. What we saw was that we, out of 20,243 treatment visits of people who came to see us, and remember, this was not insurance covered treatment. So people would come to us after they tried everything and nothing else worked. But what we found is that 76% of the visits were for pain-related conditions and 56% were specifically for back pain. So we know what a huge problem back pain is. And what we found that a lot of people were getting significant improvements across all different treatments on all these conditions. But what we saw was, when I was looking at the data and I was looking at what was going on in the center, is that we had one practitioner who was getting really, really great results because he was able to see people in just a few visits and they didn't come back. They didn't come back because they were better. And so I went to him, and that was Dr. Nunez, and I said, what is it that you're doing here? Is it the acupuncture that's doing this? He says, well, sometimes I use acupuncture, but a lot of what I do is somatic functional therapy. And he explained it to me. And knowing what I know about the brain, being a neuroscientist and knowing about psychology, I said, wow, that makes so much sense. Why isn't this being done all over the place? And he said, well, this is something that I've developed based on a lot of clinical practice over many years. And so we took that information, and because we were getting such great results, we went to the local HMO, and they had a competition for $1 million grant to create a new care pathway for chronic back pain. And we applied to that, and we were awarded the $1 million for a randomized control trial. So those of you who know about research, that's kind of the gold standard in research. It's a randomized control trial comparing three things: physical therapy and the standard of care in the hospital, this kind of everything but the kitchen sink complementary and alternative medicine, which included acupuncture, chiropractic, massage therapy, Feldenkrais movement re-education, hypnotherapy, just everything you could think of. And we compared that to a group where the principal modality was somatic functional therapy. And what we found was pretty amazing. We found that while all of the groups showed some improvements, significant improvements in back pain, when you look at just resolution, we found that the physical therapy group, only 5% of people were actually resolving their chronic back pain. With the complementary alternative medicine comprehensive arm, 16% were. And the somatic functional therapy arm, where we hired a couple of massage therapists straight out of school and just taught them some basic protocols, 25% of patients said, you know what, my back pain is completely resolved. And so we said, well, this is great, but there's only so many somatic functional therapy, and I'm going to call it SFT for short. It's a little bit easier. Trained people. How can we get this out to the masses? And that's when we started doing some group programs. So we worked with different organizations, and one of the first ones was Chrysler, in a program to again, this was also a randomized controlled trial, but in a group. So how can we teach this to you, to the people at Chrysler, to help them resolve their own back pain? So teaching them what they could do to learn to resolve it. And what we found is that 55% of the people in the educational program resolved their back pain completely. Now, this is pretty much unheard of. Usually people, once they have chronic back pain, they always have chronic back pain, or at least 99% of them do. So it's really important to be able to prevent that chronic back pain in the first place, but also to reverse it. And these people were able to do this. And interestingly enough, the control group, 0% of people resolved their back pain. So that's a pretty big difference there. And when we went to the hospital and showed them this results, they were like amazed, and they said, wow, why aren't we doing this with our employees? So then we began a whole series of years of programs where we worked with our employees at the health system. We worked with communities. We worked with other organizations like local churches, police department. We worked with patients from Blue Cross Blue Shield, Dow Chemical. And this was overall nearly 10 years of research that were conducted through the health system. And what it found altogether, we did 28 group programs, and these were all IRB approved clinical trials. If you know about research, or if you don't, IRB is the Institutional Review Board, and they, you have to make sure that everything's done on the up and up, that everything's done scientifically, that it's all done correctly. And so all of these trials were done like this. They were done in corporate, insurance, community programs, and the group sizes, and this is really interesting, ranged from 50 to 200 people in a group. Now, why is this important? Well, when you can address people in a group, or even better, one-to-one through the internet, where you can reach a lot of people at once, you can impact a lot of lives. And here's the results. There were over 2,400 participants that participated in these educational group programs. Altogether, they had more than 13,400 chronic pain conditions. That means that on average, they had more than 5 chronic pain conditions apiece. So that's the thing. If you go to physical therapy because your knee hurts, and you tell them while you're there, oh, my back hurts too, they're like, well, you're going to have to come back for another round of physical therapy for your back. So it's not really the best for the patient to be coming back over and over and over again, nor is it great for the health systems, because it's just too much work and too much time. So when we can address people, teaching them, then you get a lot better results. So nearly all of these participants also had one stress-related condition, or comorbidity. And we used scientifically validated outcome measures. So here's the research results. This is what's key. So chronic back pain, 89% of people said they were improved, and 55% completely resolved their chronic back pain. This is for the back pain results. For other pain conditions, because then we expanded the programs to all chronic pain, not just chronic back pain, 72% of conditions were improved and 37% were resolved. And chronic stress, which we'll talk about today, which is interrelated with all of this, 70% of people improved and 18% said, you know what, it's resolved. I no longer have chronic stress. So interestingly enough, a lot of the stress-related conditions, like obviously stress, depression, anxiety, disability, sleep, fatigue, all of these things were improved as well. And you can ask, well, how is that possible? You're doing a program for pain, right? Well, yes and no. And what we're going to talk about today is how stress and pain are intricately tied together, and how when you address one, you can address the other. And we'll give you an example of that, where you actually will get to participate in one of the things that we taught to these students, and you will notice a difference today. And also, the need for and use of medications was reduced or eliminated. 53% of people reported taking fewer pain medications by the end of the program, and 14% stopped taking pain medications altogether. So not only are they better, but they're doing it with fewer or no pain medications at all. And this is very key, because most people with chronic pain, they're not drug seekers, they're relief seekers. So if you provide relief for people, then they don't need all those medications, right? And the results were maintained long-term. up to 8 and 16 months that we followed up, and probably longer than that now, we didn't follow up. And people loved it. People loved the program. Here's one we did with the church, New Hope program. 99% of people were satisfied with the program. 98% said, I'd love to take another program, and 100% would have recommended it to their friends and loved ones. So we want to tell you a little bit about this more today, so you get a little bit feel of what it's about. And I think, Tanya, you're going to
Yes. Thank you.
Dr. Slakowski, by the way. It's a crazy name. We call him
I
Dr.
just call him
Slick.
Dr. Joe. Slakowski.
So you can just call him Dr. Slick.
Dr. Slick. Thank you so much, Elba. When I first met Dr. Joe Slakowski, and we began talking about this, he said, as a medical doctor, it seemed too good to be true. But I saw it with my own eyes. And Dr. Joe, before I pull you up, I'm actually going to put a video on, a video that you recommended that I see. I know that some people that are on have pain right now that's so bad. Some people can't lift their arm and haven't been able to lift their arm for months, sometimes years. People have such pain and tight muscles in their hip that they move with a frozen hip throughout their life. There is a video, it's just a few quick minutes of, I believe it's Dr. Ramon working with a patient who had, in their 40s, who had frozen shoulder. And before we bring our medical doctor on, let me quickly, please, Lord of the Google OneDrive, please let this work for me. Okay, it's coming up. I'm screen sharing. Why isn't it big? Come on. All right, we'll stop the share. It worked just fine before we came on. And here it is, the final. There it is. Okay. Now it is saying it is not compatible. Well, I'm not going to waste time. I do apologize. It's not compatible with this computer that I'm using. It was with the other one. But I want to introduce Dr. Joe Slakowski, also co-founder of Somatic Functional Therapy, an amazing medical doctor. And you are coming out of Boston, correct?
That's correct. Hi, everyone. Again, everything I say, I don't want a big infomercial, because you can go on the internet and find a million things like this. Do this and you are pain-free. It's not a uncommon hook, so to speak. I'm a very traditional trained physician, family medicine, sports medicine background. I've been treating injuries and sports medicine, occupational health, probably tens of thousands. And I've always been like, let's do stuff that works. So I've brought in acupuncture, chiropractic, physical therapy, drugs, if someone needed surgery, whatever it took. But I was medical director, corporate medical director of Subaru, and the HR department says, geez, we have this big problem. So many people are in pain, they're not able to work. And do you have any solutions for, they had thousands of employees. And I'm like, geez, where can it be where you can treat hundreds or thousands at a time? So I went, did some internet search, and I found online what Alba had talked about, that studying Chrysler, 55% of people became pain-free. And I thought they were full of it, because I had treated thousands of people back pain, knew every quote literature in healthcare. And I was like, this is not possible. So serendipitously, I was in a conference in Las Vegas, and lo and behold, they were speakers. And I listened to them, and they talked about the science, how it worked. And I'm like, this seems to be the missing link, the stuff that I've never thought about or anyone was trained in. So we had breakfast. I said, still they seem okay, but let me go out. I'm going to fly out to Detroit where they were at Henry Ford. And they, again, showed me some more of their data. And I said, I want to get trained in this because it just, for me, my thought was we can bring this to everyone in the United States. Why not? And so I got trained in it in order to see if this stuff worked and see if I wanted to commit to this. And, I just want to say one thing. The definition of chronic pain means we don't know the answer. And, there used to be, chronic pneumonia 100 years ago. You don't hear about that anymore. So it's not that you have to be in chronic pain. We just haven't found the right solutions. Well, I'm very confident that this is a definite solution. And I'll give you a quick example. So I'm a medical director of urgent care, and I practice somatics within, people come in to me with all sorts of pain conditions. And I had a woman, she was 80 years old, and I walk in, I said, how can I help you? And she had hives the size of golf balls all over her. And I'm like, And usually it's stress related frequently because she hadn't taken anything unusual meds or anything. And I said, what's going on? And she goes, doctor, I can't raise my shoulders. I'm in so much pain for the last 6 months. She had frozen shoulders on both sides. And she had gone through therapy, physical therapy, 4 injections, MRIs, and nothing was helping her. And I'm like, I was like, I just learned the somatics. It was very early on. And I was like, well, let's try something. And I looked at her shoulder and I'm like, I find some muscles that were just like tight as drums. And Ramon had said, okay, do this technique. And I, in this situation, so I laid her on the table and I did a somatic routine with her, showed her what she was going to do at home too. And then I did it on the other side, and she gets up and I'm like, let's see what's happened. She goes, doctor, look at me. And I'm like, wait a second. And then her niece who was with her, and I have all this documented, said, look, doctor, her hives are gone. We're talking within, this was in a 15-minute urgent care visit. And I'm like, this is not possible given everything I know.
As a medical doctor.
As a medical doctor, but now I do. So this is the kind of what's SFT is how the body works. And I'll just give you one little caveat there. I then took that information and I sent it to all my colleagues. I went to Harvard, say, listen, why don't you guys participate in this, bring it, let's study it some more. Because by that time, Henry Ford had closed the program down for, not because it didn't work, because for other reasons. And Harvard said to me, even if you show me a miracle, I'm not interested if it's not our work. And that's been a frustrating thing for me because getting something, quote, new out there, as we all know, is not easy. And I've committed a lot of time, talked to a lot of people, and I appreciate being able to share because being able to do this for the first time online is, I think, the step to getting this to where everyone can benefit.
I certainly hope so. And, as somebody, I too have been in allopathic medicine for 30 years. I mean, all of my work beginning at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center and Women's Health, and then having my own hospital consulting agency for 17 years, all of it was very traditional. And to be able to find modalities that worked were almost always outside of traditional medical pathways. And to hear you, Dr. Slakowski, knowing your pedigree as a medical doctor, having you endorse this We now have a half an hour where our participants who have joined this webinar actually want to learn something. They want to understand if the pain that they or their loved ones are having can be solved through this medical miracle, if you will, somatic functional therapy. So I know you're going to stay on to answer questions, but I'm going to move to Dr. Ramon Nunez, introduce Dr. Ramon. I'm going to put the spotlight on you there, if you don't mind. Come on up. There he is. Yeah. That energy. Love you, Dr. Ramon Nunez. Give a little background of who you are and then take us home. And I'm actually going to come back into your studio because I love to be a part of the energy that you give off, the exercises that you give me. I feel 100% better. So you guys are gonna, I'm saying goodbye off of this and I'll be back there and I'll close out from back there. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Dr. Nunez.
Absolutely, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Yes, as was mentioned, somatic functional therapy. Somatic functional therapy, which is something that I developed going back to the mid-80s after a couple of decades of working with patients, primarily starting out in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, but then delving because of my other background, which is in martial arts. I've been a martial art practitioner for now over 60 years, and that led me down a path that brings me to where we are today. And where is that? Well, we promised we were going to share with you 3 secrets, starting at 3. There's millions, but starting at 3. But I'm going to give you the 3rd one first, which is, I'm going to take you through a lesson to have you genuinely experience what you're able to do. When we say, we worked with hundreds of patients at a time, this is not hands-on. This isn't me running down through the aisles trying to lay my hands on people. This is 200 participants taking lessons, learning, lecture, demonstration, and then going home that night and doing what they were taught, living with it over the next 2 weeks until their next session, giving us all the appropriate data and feedback, and then coming back for another lesson. At that time, this was done live, but with the advent of the internet, we now believe we can deliver this worldwide. So I'm going to take you through a lesson where all you have to do is follow my instructions. I'm going to guide you through some movements. Key things: at no time should any movement that you do hurts. If it hurts, you're doing it wrong or you're doing it too hard. And when I say simple movements, I'm going to demonstrate. So this is part of a routine that I often use for demonstration purposes because the effects can be so dramatic. It's one that starts with your head, with your neck. We talk about stress, and I think everyone can identify with the stress posture that is first for many of us felt in our neck and shoulders. And this is one way to immediately intervene and change the program and what's going on with your pain. So I'm going to demonstrate and you're going to follow along. Obviously, if we're looking at each other on this, it's going to be a mirror image. So if I'm turning to my left, you may be turning to your right, and that's fine. Start on whichever side is more comfortable for you. But before we start, what I want you all to do is to comfortably and easily turn your head in one direction and notice how far, how comfortable you can go. Slowly bring it back to the center. And then compare that, turning your head in the opposite direction. And again, note how far, how easy, is it painful? And just to yourself, note which direction is easier. Now, I'm going to direct you to turn to your right side. You choose, but the language will be directed towards the right, so we'll keep it in a logical space here. And what I want you to do is, as you inhale, while you are inhaling, you're going to easily turn your head about an inch. As you exhale, just bring it back to the center. As you inhale, let's turn it maybe 2 inches. As you exhale, bring it easily back to the center. Again, inhale, as you're inhaling, turn it maybe 3 inches. Exhale, bring it back to the center. Easily, as you inhale, take it just a little further to your comfort. As you exhale, let it come back to that neutral center position. Now, nice and easy, as a comparison, check that distance, check the ease of that movement, and now compare it to your other side. And what many of you are going to notice, I chuckle because this happens all the time, is that you can now turn easier in one direction than you can in the other. And so you can't leave you walking around lopsided. It's not a good thing. So nice and easy, as you inhale, easily turn your head in the opposite direction to where you started. As you exhale, bring it back to the center. Again, as you're inhaling, easily turn it, take it to your comfort level, your comfort zone. Exhale, bring it back to the center. And now comfortably, easily compare the two sides. And what you should notice is that it's easier to turn. You can turn further. You may be turning with less discomfort, less pain. And ask yourself, how long did that take? And is that a typical lesson? Well, a typical lesson might last perhaps an additional minute. And so then we ask you as a participant to do this routine, for lack of a better term, every day. People say, well, what do you mean every day? Well, do you want to feel good every day, or is there a particular day you don't want to feel well? No, you do this until you learn it. Some of you should have realized, well, wait a minute, he had me turn 4 times in one direction, I only turned 2 in the other direction. Well, if you learned it, why should you have to repeat it exactly in the opposite direction? This is something you're learning. So that's once, Dr. Sled Joe talks about, this is how the body works. And yes, this is how the body works. I read an article, going into secret number 2. I read an article published 12 years ago. And in it, it talked about a new discovery in the understanding of pain. And it has to do with proprioception, or how your brain perceives and receives feedback from your body in relationship to the space we're in. Right? If your brain didn't perceive heat, you might put your hand on something hot and burn yourself. Or if you've had perhaps a little too much to drink and you're a little clumsy, it's because the alcohol has affected your internal feedback or your proprioception. Okay, so 12 years ago, this discovery is that embedded within our own muscles are sensory organs called spindle cells. Now, their counterpart are Golgi tendons, but I want to talk about spindle cells. What was noted in this amazing discovery was that spindle cells have their own large nerve fibers that transmit pain. It's a discovery. It's been there forever. But that science found out 12 years ago. Now, the lack of research that's been done since then in that arena goes beyond any comprehension. But I'll leave it at this regarding spindle cells, because we are teachers. Okay, we're doctors, we're teachers. And part of what we do is teach you and throw a lot of information at you in these programs we do, so that you get it, so that you can discuss this and the theories and the concepts with anybody in English and actually understand it. Spindle cells tell your brain when there is too much stress on a muscle. Meaning, is the muscle too tight? And if it is, it sends impulses to the brain to let the brain know that, and the brain should subsequently relax that muscle if it's appropriate. And so why aren't you walking around with your entire body so relaxed that you have no pain at all? For most of us, it's because it's beneath our own consciousness. We don't know that it's happening until it's presented itself as a problem. So one of the secrets of SFT is within these spindle cells, within these Golgi centers, within your own body's sensory system, it tries to tell us what's wrong. But if we don't understand the language of that body, then we're left to go to the experts in every field out there. Okay, I have put SFT against chiropractic, acupuncture, as Dr. Rodriguez said, you name it. Why? Because we're so much better? No, because we're trying to understand, okay, many of these modalities are very valid and help people tremendously. But sit down with me anytime you want and tell me how it works, why you do it. Why do you have so many theories? And this is to all of the practitioners out there that seem to oppose each other. Okay? Well, SFT, Somatic Functional Therapy, first and foremost, makes sense. Okay? When we say it's based on science, it's based on truth. And if science can show us how things honestly work, then it's scientific as can be. But also, when we say to somebody, do this, and these are the expectations, and then they go ahead and they do it, and they get well, and we're able to reproduce that scientifically, and we think we're on something. Another, pain is not inevitable. Okay, anyone, from childhood on up experiences pain. And where do we experience this pain? Oh, well, if it's emotional, we experience it in our body, of which we are mostly muscle. We are more muscle than we are anything else. And these muscles aren't there just to hang around our bones. Okay, our nervous system, our circulatory system, it's all embedded in the matrix that are muscles. Okay, and so, when I look at someone, of course I see a body just like Dr. Joe does. We see the same bodies, but we approach that body from a different understanding. Now he, of course, is excelling in SFT, and I dare say is doing some amazing work. But there are too few of those types of physicians out there. So we've kind of decided, look, if we can't get physicians on board, if we can't get the health practitioners on board, then let's just get the general public on board. Let's just get you on board. I have a special place in my heart for nurse practitioners, physician assistants. I think there is an amazing, amazing place for them. But that's to be continued. I said that pain is not inevitable. Okay? And that one thing that hasn't been really mentioned is that SFT, Somatic Functional Therapy, is an education therapeutic system. What do we mean by that? It's about what we can teach you. I dare say, my expectation for any participant in our program is take the information and use it to write your own user's manual. And while there would be similarities, each one should be unique and personal because it's your user manual. And we can teach you how to do that. how to use your mind, your body to be well, to get well, to not just manage pain. The challenge we took on was, how can we help people resolve their pain? Get rid of their pain. Okay? It's not magic, it's not a trick, it's knowledge, it's education, and it works. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to, is that it works. Tanya. Are we still on? I'm getting no feedback.
Yes, we are here. I'm sorry. I just wanted to come back in. I just wanted to come back in.
Great, great.
Field some questions because
Yes.
I got little
indeed.
beeps that there were questions. Sorry.
Excellent.
I couldn't look at those in the studio. I had to run back to the other office. And there's Dr. Joe. Okay. All right. So I have a question, and this is for Dr. Joe and Dr. Nunez. How did that shoulder unfreeze? And that's it. That was the question. I want to know the answer to that too. Now, the neck was so exciting, right? Every time I do it, I am so amazed at how much stress I had in my body and how much pain I was carrying without even knowing it. Every time I do that, I try to do it when I'm at red lights a little bit here and there to retrain myself. But Dr. Joe, do you want to take that for a minute? Question is, what did you do?
Well, we have 635 voluntary muscles in our body. And by definition, voluntary means you should be able to control it, contract, relax. You can see I could do this very quickly. And if I ask a patient why, relax and contract your shoulder blade muscles, they're like, I can't do it. Well, we were born to do it, and so our brain just needs a little reminder. And that's, to me, one of the key elements of somatics, right? It's just taking what our body and our brain was designed to do. So with this woman,
let me stop you. Okay, you just said something that I've heard Dr. Nunez say too. The connection between the body and the brain needs to be restored. Can you please kind of elucidate that a bit?
Yeah, so for this 80 plus year old woman, her latissimus dorsi was tight as a drum. And if you think anatomically, if that's tight, you cannot raise your shoulder. So with somatics, and Ramon can address this, it's a feedback mechanism, simple motions, the brain recognized, she just felt pain. She didn't know where the problem was. I helped her brain identify that latissimus dorsi muscles contraction. And our brain does, in caveman days, if we walked around as stressed out and tight as we are now, we wouldn't make it because dinosaurs would catch it. So we're all designed to be in the relaxed state when at rest. And we've programmed ourselves not to do it with our, quote, modern society.
Fascinating. Do you want to say a few things? I know we're running short on time, but Dr. Nunez, can you address the whole mind-body connection? And if someone's watching this, I know that, for instance, if you've given us your email, you'll get information on a couple of clinical workshops that are going to be coming up. One on chronic back pain, which is the largest source of loss of wages, loss of employment in this country, loss of quality of life. And then another one, which I'm so excited about because I was a sufferer of plantar fasciitis at the bottom of the foot. People spend thousands every year on shoes and orthotics when SFT can be a solution. So we're going to have definite classes, if you will, educational experiences. But in the meantime, can you talk practically about what people can take from tonight to begin thinking about as they deal with their pain?
you know, I've often heard the term mind body, spirit, as if these are separate entities somehow, and that somehow they're not communicating with each other. But no, in truth, they're actually communicating just fine. The thing is that we are not in touch with this relationship. You know, the mind is the body. You know, the body is the spirit. They're part of the same thing. And it's through a learning process today that we can begin to change this. Now, as an infant, you know, a child, we take most children and they're as flexible can be. You can tie them into knots practically. Okay? But somehow, as we've gotten older, we've become disconnected from our bodies. And often this is described as old age, that, you know, but there's another secret to be had, is that age is not pathology. You know, we often joke of the patient going to the doctor with a bad knee and says, "Doc, my knee is really killing me." And the doc says, "Well, you know, that right knee, you know, you're getting older." Your next question should be, "Well, then, how old's my other knee? That one doesn't hurt." You know, and that's how disconnected I think too often we've become. You know, oh, there has to be a pill out there, there has to be a surgery out there has to be a fix. The real fix is in here, and it's through you. Yes, there are things that we do with patients as we're teaching them, but it's about what we can teach you to live a genuinely stress-free, pain-free life. You know, living for as long as you're meant to be here, but well. You know, that's what it's about, living well up until your old age, whatever that may be. And I'll be 69 on my next birthday. Okay, I hope to get to 70, pain-free, stress-free. Thank you. Any other questions, Stephanie?
I have one more, and the question is pretty interesting. You had said earlier that the muscles were responsible for communicating pain to the brain. When I go to the gym, I do a lot of muscle stretching and workout. Will this help pain?
You know, yes, definitely. I mean, you know, that's when it comes down to it, pain, absolutely. You know, we have to understand that pain, all pain is experienced in the brain. Okay, in the brain. This is why if someone unfortunately has a spinal cord injury, below that injury, there's no pain sensation. Okay, because because the nerves have been damaged. Perhaps, but that connection has to be and can be reestablished. Okay, and this is what we're talking about when we say muscles. You know, we talk about muscles, we talk about pain, we talk about injury. You know, I think all of us know somebody who in their childhood might have injured themselves, say broken a leg. And, you know, 3 months, 6 months, a year later, that leg healed up just fine. Except for the fact that the pain never really went away. And we wonder, well, wait a second, if it's healed, why hasn't the pain gone away? Because the
Maybe I could
brain-
just, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Well, again, a muscle does two things. It either contracts or relaxes. So stretching has never been shown to prevent an injury. And it's not, a muscle does two things. It should contract, relax. So you can go work out. And I think using muscles is very healthy. That's been well shown, you know, in strength training, cardiovascular. But what happens, and I've had a lot of athletes, and I've had some professional athletes, they come in tight as a drum. They didn't, you know, sort of work out or reach, you know, focus on relaxing their muscles. And guess what? They don't know how. And to me, if you look at chronic pain in athletes, it's sky high. Look at the NFL, had an NHL player. And so stretching, I'm not saying it's going to do anything bad, but how could you relax those? And this to me is part of what somatics does.
And I think it's the key, right? It's the key to somatics is learning how to relax so that the muscle doesn't contract and cause pain. I remember reading, I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger or somebody that would wake up in the middle of the night screaming, his whole body a Charlie horse, right? What is a Charlie horse except a muscle that is constricting against your will and causing excruciating pain? Amazing. And I know that in your classes, both of you, and in your therapies, there are other things like, lights and, different postures and how to pick things up, how to sit down, but it all works to help your brain keep your muscles from contracting in pain. And it's a cycle. And if we disrupt the pain cycle and keep it flowing, it's kind of youthful aging, right? It's kind of that reversal of, starting to bend over and then you need I live in South Florida, you need a walker and your mood gets all bitter. We need to stop that, right? It's preventable. So thank you. Those of you that are on this podcast, you've given us your email, you will get some cool offers on back. There'll be some stuff. I love the plantar fasciitis. The back pain is a big one. And then there will be the actual series that was used with the Chrysler research and others so that your life can be transformed through somatic functional therapy. And Dr. Nunez is right now developing a training program for trainers, for healthcare providers. Dr. Slikowski, Dr. Slick, I love that, and Dr. Nunez and Dr. Rodriguez, they will teach other doctors, other nurses, other healthcare providers how to do this. So the future is wide open on the internet. It's global, it's exciting, and thank you for helping us all get one step closer to living a pain-free life. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening, and thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.